you. If anybody's had a chance to peruse the agenda, I'd take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. Do we have Amber Dean here? Yep, go ahead.
Let me plug that. Plug this in, Amber. Sorry. Okay, there you go.
The reason I'm here tonight is regarding the public burn site. I don't know if it's been brought to your attention. I know it has about the smoke. I called up a couple weeks ago when there was smoke in the streets of town. That is how it is at my house most of the time that thing burns. And besides it being a nuisance, it's a health hazard. My beginning of health hazards started when my 2-year-old was a couple weeks old. There was smoke coming into our house from that, and this is the middle of winter with our windows closed. And he had to be taken to the emergency room with respiratory distress. Every time that the smoke comes up to our house, I end up with at least one of my children needing breathing treatments and some kind of intervention. So I just want to see what we can do as the city leaders to stop this. It's not just a matter of a nuisance anymore, it's a matter of it's affecting the health of my family. And I don't know what your answers are, but I think that you guys need to look into this a great deal, because it is a responsibility to keep the air clean for your citizens and not produce things that are going to cause problems in it. So I'll leave it at that, and you guys see what you can do. But I can't keep risking my health and my children for the burn pile. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Amber. Thanks, Amber. Okay. Any other public comments? Okay.
I had a question about that. Was that an intentional burn, or was that a burn that started?
That was one, I don't think we ever knew how that started, did we, Doug?
No, we didn't. It was early in the morning, 5 or so, and I think
I
Amber
saw
called.
a great big fire burning at 5 in the morning,
Yeah.
and I thought you guys were out there burning. And I think if you guys would have left it burn, we wouldn't have had smoke overs. It was a nice fire, but they said they didn't have people to man it, but it took a lot more to put it out. But it's not only when it's, whether it's intentional or not, I still had smoke in my house, and it's not the only time it's happened. And on another note, that one of the emergency room doctors I talked to said, you know, they really shouldn't be burning because people with nut allergies, if they get that inhaled, it's not just a food allergy, it's if they inhale it, they can have anaphylactic shock also. So I think a lot of research needs to be done into this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other public comment, then the next item on the agenda is a public hearing regarding proposed state revolving fund loan for the financing of the wastewater treatment plant project. Being the time and place for that public hearing, I will open the public hearing at 5:34. And City Manager Dunn, do you want to review the details?
Yes, Mayor. This is a public hearing on authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement by and between the city and Iowa Finance Authority and the issuance of Iowa Finance Authority of not to exceed $5,500,000 sewer revenue capital loan notes. To evidence the obligations of the city under a loan and disbursement agreement in order to provide funds to pay costs of acquisition, construction, reconstruction, extending, remodeling, improving, repairing, and equipping all or part of the municipal sewer system, including costs associated with the acquisition, construction, and equipment of the new wastewater treatment plant, and the refunding of sewer revenue capital loan notes, anticipation project note, series 2010, dated October 27th, 2010, issued in respect of such costs, and that the notice of the proposed action of the council to institute proceedings for the authorization of the loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of the notes has been published. In layman's terms, for financing the sewer treatment plant project and related expenses for that project, we are by law required to hold a public hearing before we would issue sewer revenue notes. And the plan is to finance through the Iowa Finance Authority, and we have arrived at a not to exceed amount of $5.5 million. And we're not ready to bond for that yet, but we're having the public hearing on it in anticipation in the coming months that we will go to bid and have to bond for it. So this is a formality to hold a public hearing and have any concerns brought forth by the public regarding the city bonding for this amount. This is a not to exceed. We anticipate that it's going to be less than that, a dollar amount less than that, but if we don't go on the high side with the public hearing and bids come in higher than we anticipate and other expenses, then we would have to start the process over, have another public hearing. So we hopefully won't have to bond for $5.5 million. But, so does anybody have any questions before we open up for public comment?
Any questions or comment from the public? Okay.
Could you review, just real quickly, the total budget for this project and the funds that we're receiving from other forms other than this bonding, right?
We've got roughly an estimate of $6.8 million for construction. We're hoping that that's on the high side. We already have a $376,000 SRF planning and design loan. That's a 0% interest loan. We'll have roughly $238,000 of construction engineering, and we've got land acquisition in there, which is kind of an unknown for all the easements and land acquisition fee simple. So we've got total project cost $7.6 million, and again that's on the high side. And then if you take out $1.7 million for iJobs grant, and then a little bit over $1 million that we'll use for sewer funds that are cash on hand, and it comes to about 4.9 that we anticipate to be the estimated cost for the loan, and so we'll do a not to exceed of $5.5 million.
Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then at 5:38.
And I guess I would just note, Mayor, for the record, that I have not had any public written comments or verbal regarding this matter.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is committee reports. Finance and Personnel Chair Dick Lukensmeyer.
These are the minutes of the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting held Monday, November 5th at 5:30 p.m. in Council Chambers. Members present, Chairman Lukensmeyer, Diane Prowley, Craig Eckhart. Also present were Mayor Sean Dietz, City Manager Ron Dunt, Public Works Director Doug Tarr, Police Chief Bob Schaefer, and Airport Manager Jay Schuman. There were a number of citizens present also. The committee discussed the renewal terms of the Airport Management Agreement with Jay Schuman. The current agreement that expires December of this year was a 3-year contract for $29,000 per year. After much discussion regarding increasing the compensation or seeking bids through a request for proposals similar to what is done with the auditing services, the committee consensus was to recommend to the full council renewing for a 3-year contract at $30,000 for the first year, with a 2% increase in year 2 and a 2% increase in year 3. Police Chief Schaefer presented some information regarding enforcement of the city nuisance code with respect to outdoor butchering of animals. After much discussion, the committee decided not to amend the ordinance at this time. Ron then reviewed the cemetery fund sources for the committee, explaining that the cemetery is funded through the general fund, the cemetery trust fund, and the perpetual care fund. The committee discussed the most recent version of the revised employee handbook being updated. The committee will continue to review the handbook individually for another week and forward any further input to Ron Dunt. The consensus of the committee was to have a new updated employee handbook on the November 27th council agenda for approval. The committee then reviewed the proposed employee Wellmark health insurance policy renewal with a decrease in premium of 7.04%. The consensus of the committee was to put on the November 13th council agenda for approval. Ron explained that U.S. Cellular recently submitted a proposed ground lease agreement for a new cellular tower proposed to be located on city property by West Park Ball Diamonds and the city stockpile site. Due to the complexities of negotiating such a lease, Ron suggested that we utilize an attorney to assist with negotiations. The committee agreed, suggesting placing this matter on the November 13th council agenda for approval. The meeting concluded at 6:35 p.m. and our next meeting will be Monday, December 3rd at 5:30 in City Council chambers.
Okay, thank you, Dick. And under the Finance and Personnel Committee, we do have consideration of Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance renewal for 2013. Ron, do you want to review the details of that?
Sure, Mayor. The city's health insurance plan is up for renewal on January 1st. The change in premium is a 7.04% decrease. This is a $2,000, $4,000 deductible, and 20%, 30% co-insurance. The city does a partial self-funding on this, and I guess I would recommend we approve it. It's nice to see a decrease in the premium, which doesn't usually happen, but.
Take a motion then at this time.
So moved to approve.
Motion by Diane to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Diane and a second by Steve to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We also have consideration of approval of airport management agreement with Jay Schuman. Ron, do you just want to highlight the differences there?
Yes, I will. This agreement would take effect first day of January 2013. 3-year contract. 2013, the compensation would be $30,000. 2014, it would be $30,600. 2015, $31,212. It'll be in effect first day of January 2013 and extend to the 31st day of December 2015.
Thank you. If there's no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
Move to approve.
To approve.
Okay. We got a motion by Dick and a second by Val to approve. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is the acknowledgement of the receipt of cell tower ground lease proposal and authorize city manager and legal counsel to begin negotiations. Do I have a motion for that authorization?
Move to approve.
Motion by Steve.
I'll second.
Second by Jim. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, under committee reports, City Services Chair Jim Davies.
City Services Committee met November 6th here in council chambers. Present were council members Diane Prowley, Dick Lukensmeyer, and myself, Mayor Sean Dietz, City Manager Ron Dunt, Public Works Director Doug Tarr, Chief of Police Bob Schaefer, Aquatic Center Manager Brad Waddle, and Cemetery Parks Lead Operator Jeff Ferris. Also present were members of the press and public. Meeting was called to order at 5:30 p.m. by Chair Jim Davies. Unfinished business. There's a presentation from Patty and Steve of KD East Security Services of Sheffield regarding security system for the Aquatic Center and Progress Park. Under new business, there's a presentation from Art of Newcom Technologies from Des Moines regarding the cemetery mapping and software programming. The Aquatic Center year-end report was also presented under new business. The overall net loss in 2012 was $30,877.29 compared with a $15,885.39 loss in 2011. Brad presented a summary of the past season, and then Brad asked to consider having an assistant manager for next summer. The meeting was adjourned at 6:33 p.m. And our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, December 4th at 5:30 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thanks, Jim. Public Assets Chair Steve Myers.
Thank you, Sean. Our next meeting will be the 20th of November, which would be next Tuesday, 5:30 at City Council Chambers.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, under new business, we have approval of pay request number 1 to Heartland Asphalt Incorporated for 2012 HMA overlay project in the amount of $50,639.95. Ron, do you want to go over that?
Yeah, Doug, you want to address anything with this? The contract price was $54,205.21, and amount that's due is $50,639.95.
There's a small deduct in there. Initially, there was a couple manholes that had chimney seals. That was the application, which is a device that assists the manhole to with freeze thaw. When the pavement moves up and down a little bit, a chimney seal will actually allow the manhole ring and cover to slide up and down, keeping the manholes basically in good working condition, where it's not letting I or water get in. Unfortunately, the manholes that are in there, the old brick style, and it wasn't conducive to utilizing that type of a seal on this, so there's a little bit of a deduct. There was a different type of work, and we didn't have to purchase the chimney seal, so there was a little bit of cost savings there. The other issue then obviously was there was 2 alternates that were paved that weren't supposed to be. That's part of the project now as well, while it's done. But anyway, I felt that the project went very well. Leave it at that.
Okay. Thanks, Doug. Okay. If there's no questions or comments, then we'll entertain a motion.
So moved to approve.
Have a second?
Second.
A motion by Diane and a second by Val to approve pay request number 1. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is approval of change order number 1 for 2012 water tower painting project in the amount of $4,500. And I see we've got Mr. Madden here.
As you guys know, we were painting the water tower, and it's one of the things that they have to do is inspect all the interior items. Anytime we have a situation where an operator or whatever would have to climb more than 8 feet or so off the ground, we have what's called safety climb harnesses, which is a harness that they wear, and then a track that this thing fits on, so that if you lost your footing, you wouldn't fall. Inside the water tower, there's such a system that's up inside the wetted area where the water's stored, and that particular guide rail was corroded. So what we did was we talked to the contractor, and there's 2 particular options for it. One is to replace the existing rail that's up there, which was X dollars. The other one was to go to a cable-mounted safety climb system, which was less expensive and easier to replace than any kind of future painting. So I talked to the city staff, and it had to be replaced one way or the other, and the cable safety climb system is what I've seen in all my projects for the last probably 8-9 years. So we believe that that's the right way to go. It was installed, and it'll be easier to replace later on in life as well. And that included not only just a cable, but the proper harness and stuff for that cable, and all that stuff's been left with the city. And that was, as the mayor said, $4,500.
Any questions for Tom?
Is it common for that to corrode like that? That sounds like something that would be quite common that happens.
It is. Anything that we put in the water tower, we either want to have it painted metal or a non-corrosive material such as aluminum or stainless steel. When I use the word non-corrosive, that's not forever. And the rail that was up there was aluminum. And when the water level goes up and down, it corrodes that particular part of aluminum because of the chlorine. And it's a wear item.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thanks, Tom. Do we have a motion on this item
So moved.
to approve?
To approve.
Okay. Second? Second by Dick. Any discussion? Got a motion by Jim and a second by Dick to approve. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Here's the actual change order, Ron. If you want to have the mayor sign it, you can mail it back anytime. Just send me 2 copies, keep them for your records, okay?
Thank you. Tom?
You bet.
Next, we have approval of pay request to McGuire Iron Incorporated for 2012 water tower painting project in the amount of $154,874.70. Don or Doug or Tom, do any of you guys have any comments on that?
I guess first things first, you'll have a copy of it, right? Okay. What I'm going to do is just run down on the top part of the front page, got the list of all the numbers. We had the original contract amount of $168,526. Then we just did change order number 1 for $4,500, which brings the total contract amount to $173,026. That is how much work they've completed. We hold on to 5% retainage, and the purpose of that is that if the contractor had any subs on the project and they were to file a claim against the project, you guys hold on to that 5% retainage for a 30-day period to allow for that claim process. It's standard operating procedures. Then the next item you'll see, it says less city expenses of $2,600. And there's an explanation in here, I'll just kind of go over it. When we put together a contract, they are 100% all-inclusive. You guys have a city to run, they have a project to work on. And what happened was, as the contractor showed up on the project, they brought what we call pressure relief devices. They were put on several hydrants, and the idea behind it is you can run your system without the water tower. The contract documents clearly stated that they were to maintain, adjust, and do things to those pressure relief devices. Well, they put them on, but they wouldn't adjust them, and I got a call from McGuire Iron, and they basically said it's not their company policy to do so. And while I understand that, company policy does not trump contract documents which you not only bid upon, but you've signed, okay? It was not brought up during the bidding process. It was not brought up at the pre-construction meeting at all. So here we are in process. And in my opinion, the city expected to pay X dollars for no involvement in the project other than regular city involvement. Because of that, I asked Doug to put together an expense sheet basically for how much extra effort the city had to put in this project, because in reality, they didn't need to spend that money to begin with, okay? So that is the $2,600, and that is supporting documentation in this actual pay request. The next line item is liquidated damages. According to the contract document, we had 2 end dates. The first end date was that all work had to be done by, I don't remember, it was sometime in November or November 1st. The other stipulation was that once the water tower was taken offline, you had 35 days to get your work done. Any day beyond 35 days was $400 a day. And we don't just pull that number out of the air. There's always substantiated. So what I had Doug do in the meantime is during that overrun, which is, I can't remember how many days it was it's on here. 14 days, I think, was that correct? Yes, 14 days. I asked him to total up the additional expenses the city had into the project because of this overrunning. That's the idea behind liquidated damages. It's not a punishment to the contractor by any means. What it is you guys walked in this project, again, expecting to spend $168,526. Any time frame you go beyond normal operations of keeping the water tower down, you guys are wasting more water, you guys are expending more electricity, you guys are expending manpower, all these kinds of things that you didn't expect to have to do as part of this project. You paid for a project that was supposed to be completed in 35 days, and you accepted the financial requirements of operating your system on an emergency basis for a 35-day period. Anything beyond the 35 days is an expense that you guys didn't anticipate having because you paid $168,000 for this project to be completed in 35 days. So I had Doug document that as well. We slipped that in the back end here, and the purpose behind that is that liquidated damages nowadays are a little bit of a contentious item because a lot of times the contractors can be real similar to airlines. They'll overbook in order to keep work going. It's understandable. I mean, everybody's got to make money, got to keep going. But that always comes at the expense of somebody. And what they end up doing is a lot of times they'll fight liquidated damages saying that they're unfounded. While the documentation as pay request clearly shows that the liquidated damages are not unfounded, because if you were to assess charges that we believe the city actually had, it would exceed the costs of the liquidated damages that are actually being assessed. So that was the point of including all that stuff, so that everything was in one place. If anybody ever refuted it, we don't have to go looking for it, it's all right there. So we believe, in my opinion, that the assessment of liquidated damages is fair, and it's founded. And then so we subtract that off 7,000, and the current amount due will be $154,874.70, and then after a 30-day period, provided there's no claims, we would release the retainage of $8,551.30. Any questions about how we arrived at this? The project went great, don't get me wrong, it went really good. It's just that they used more time than they should have for the project.
Question I have is, you discussed this with McGuire Iron? I mean, they know it's coming?
Yes, I've talked about them with them. I didn't necessarily say that we're going to assess damages. My contact with them guys is always, the contract says you have to be done in 35 days. The contract has stipulations for work after that. So you guys do what you got to do. Up ahead of time, until you guys approve stuff, I really can't tell them too much because I'm speaking out of turn. At that point, now we've discussed it. If you guys are in agreement with this and approve it, now I'm able to talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for Tom? Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
You got a motion by Steve and a second by Jim to approve. Any further discussion?
I appreciate Tom and Yagi Colby's efforts in looking out for our best interest. It's really beneficial to us, and I appreciate your efforts, Tom. Thank you.
Welcome. Great job, Tom. If there's no further discussion, we'll have a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Ron, here's the original pay request for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay. Next on the agenda is Eric Christensen, Summerfest Chair with plans for 2013 Business Appreciation Summerfest Weekend. It's going to be a while. He brought a drink. And the bartender.
Mayor and council members, thanks for hearing us today. I am the chair of Summerfest 2013. I was the co-chair last year, and we have a few slight changes that we'd like to propose for Summerfest this coming year. Namely, on Friday night, instead of, in addition to having Summerfest be called Summerfest, Friday night we were going to throw out calling it more of a business appreciation day, where we would combine with the current Hampton Area Chamber of Commerce Golf Open, which is already a popular event, but has seen some need for revitalization in the past couple of years due to participation, other issues. So what we are proposing for the Friday of Summerfest, called Business Appreciation, is have the golf tournament that Friday morning. And once that gets done in the early evening, we would encourage those that participate to head down to Van Shell Park, where from 6 till 8 p.m. we would have a opening band that would come at the Chamber's expense. The Chamber would be sponsoring Summerfest. They would continue their same role as they have in the past years. And then after 8 o'clock, we'd have our main band, Standing Hampton, come in from 8 to midnight. That is one of the issues that we would ask for your approval, is first of all to have, to allow a band to play in Van Shell Park from 8 p.m. until midnight. So that would be item number one. In addition to these events, we would also like to propose that we put a snow fence around about 3/5 of the park. You can see there's a map attached there. This fence would be the boundary for where we would serve beer at Friday night's Business Appreciation. It's a 5-foot gapped fence. We would use snow fence as it shows on the map there. We've talked to Bob Schaefer about this. He's the one that suggested the 5-foot gap in order to make sure that nobody's passing drinks over the line or anything else like that. A few questions that you might have about this, and I'm going to try and tackle them one by one and then take any additional questions that you guys have. namely security. We are aware that there's a security concern. We've also talked to Bob Schaefer about this. It is convenient that Jeff Nicazzo, owner of Red Moose, has a deputy, or a brother that is a deputy in Hardin County. He has ran security for events like this in the past, and Jeff does not believe it'll be an issue to have him come and run security for the event. It'd be approximately 6 to 8 people. These other 6 to 8 people would be off-duty police officers. We would have 2 of these people at the main entrance, which you can see marked on the map there. They would be checking IDs. The reason we put that main entrance where it is located is if we ended up having a line or a crowd congregating just because it's the main entrance, those streets around Banshell Park would also be closed off, which is another item that we would propose to you tonight, which I'll get to later. So we don't have to worry so much about people backing up on the highway is pretty much why we put the main entrance there. In addition to checking IDs, we would have a random bag check, and the remaining members of the security team would be going between that 5-foot gap on a constant basis throughout the event. You can also see there's a second in and out, is what I call it there. That is a wristband only in and out, entrance and exit. We think for security and safety reasons to have more than one entrance exit is probably a good idea, and also to serve the convenience of the patrons that attend so that they can get to vendors and go in and out as they need to. Let me see what else we got here. As far as some of Jeff's concerns, his insurance, his DRAM insurance, would extend from Red Moose. He's checked with his insurance company. It's a nominal fee that has not presented itself as an issue. He's also checked with the state liquor board, and the liquor license, there's a special event liquor license that can be added on to his existing one, again for a nominal fee, but nothing that would cause an issue. As far as how drinks would be bought, there would be a ticket system. $3–4 a ticket, something like that. You have to buy the ticket, you have to have an ID to get the ticket, and the ticket is what gets you the beer. He will also be serving soda. It's also available. This is not strictly a beer thing. We do encourage families to attend, and hopefully the patrons that are taking part of it realize that this is still a family event. That is why we left that side of the park with the vendors and some open green space there. You can just see the items that are listed or posted on the map there include porta-johns. If you have any other specific questions about where certain items will be placed, I'd be glad to field those, but the beer tent would likely be on the north side of the park, along that longer east-west fence. The reason that we are proposing this is that in the past years, Friday night starts off with a fizzle and doesn't really pick up until the kids show up, and from there on out it's a babysitting feature. And it's not a bad thing. It is important to have something for the kids to go out and do. But we feel like we can draw up a little bit more excitement and interest for our town by having an event like this, which is not too dissimilar from Oktoberfest in Sheffield or Kickin' and Chicken in Rockwell. We feel there's a niche for this in our community so that we can have some young adults come out and have a good time, still have their kids around, and with adequate security and attention, hopefully pull this off without any problems. So, I am happy to field any additional questions that you may have. As far as the streets closing, that's the same, we were proposing the same street closures as we have in the past years. I believe you got a map that came along that, and maybe you didn't, apologize if you didn't, but it has, and we can get that to you at a future date, but it's the same streets that we've closed off in the past. It's north-south streets on both sides of Banshell Park, the street that goes east-west to the south of Banshell Park, and then depending on how big the car show is this year, maybe a couple additional streets. So If you guys don't have those maps, we'd be glad to present the street closures at a future meeting. But I guess primarily we are going to propose that we have beer in the park on Friday night of Summerfest, Business Appreciation. So if you guys have any additional questions or
Can you
comments.
talk to the post office about the fact that you're closing the street in front of them during their busiest part of the day?
We have done it in the years past.
They're okay with it?
And I'd honestly have to have Brooke speak to it on that part of it, but we leave the alley open so that they can still have access to the post office, and we'll be monitoring the parking spots so that nobody parks where they shouldn't.
Mary has not had a problem with it in the past.
All right.
What's the actual date?
Friday, August, it's either the 8th or the 9th.
9th.
Friday, August 9th would be the night in question.
So that would be private security. Is that, Jeff, you're taking care of that?
Yeah, I have a young brother, Cord, who's a deputy for Hardin County. He's been with them for 6 years. Before that, he was 2 years with Alpha Falls Police Department. This is kind of something him and some of his colleagues kind of do in summertime, just earn a little extra money. They work security down in Steamboat Rock for some events they have had. He's also gone down and helped out with Visha a few years. He's worked a couple of concerts there in Ames and then down in Des Moines. So this is something that he has done in the past. And I feel comfortable, I trust him. And he's like I say, he would be bringing other off-duty officers up with him, so it's not just like his buddies or his friends. And say same thing with people, checking the gate, checking IDs would be a law enforcement officer also. And then say I would really like to have, like a section set up to do, like say, random bag checks and, just security checks and, maybe having a Hampton on-duty officer present also might help, just in case someone does discover something that might be threatening or illegal. And I also don't want people to be bringing in their own liquor or beer into the event. That way we can kind of control that aspect of it a little bit more too.
In addition to the Summerfest committee members and chamber board members that would be volunteers, they would also be around to help aid security.
Any questions for Eric or Jeff?
I have a question. So the band would play till midnight, and then, beer would be served till midnight, and then that would be closed off?
That's correct.
At that point?
The closures and their activities on Saturday, the streets will still be affected on all day Saturday?
The streets would still be closed Saturday. We would have our usual events, inflatables, live music, more focusing on the family on Saturday more so than on Friday, but still have our usual events on Saturday.
And the cleanup would be done by morning or?
Yeah, I would be in charge of cleanup also. I would pay for that to have done.
We would still plan to have our Summerfest car show Saturday morning, so we would be working pretty diligently to make sure it's ready for everybody.
Okay. So basically, we've got 3 requests that need approval. Is that right? Allow the band to play till midnight, install the snow fence and street closures. Is that basically what you're?
If served beer goes in line with the fence, then yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on what the requests that need approval are. Okay. If there's no other questions, then we'd entertain a motion then.
So I've got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I'm not quite sure, Bob hasn't informed me about what's going on here as far as the size of this fencing. We don't want to take up the whole park or, on this fencing. I don't.
They've got drawings for us.
Before we've had, probably, if this is what it looks like to me, we've never had any problems when we had, the corner of it fenced off. I think it's easily, it's easier to maintain, and they have less officers that was required to go ahead and patrol that area. I'm not quite sure as far as off-duty officers from other agencies. I think you need to check with the city attorney on that to see what the liability is as far as the city's concerned. But like I say, that's quite a large section to be cordoned off. So that's something that I talked to Bob Schaefer about, but his opinion and stuff, he thought maybe a quarter section would be sufficient without, since it's a family event that's down there.
All right.
Eric, you did say you talked to Bob about, in your conversation with him, what were you planning on at that time? You talked with the chief?
We didn't, at that time, we didn't have a specified area. We had originally, I know in your packet that you got in last week, that we had originally planned on trying to do the whole park and making it only 21-year-olds. After reflecting on that for a week or two, we do want to still include families. I guess when we say it's a family event, this is primarily a 21 and older event. It's more so business appreciation, and we just want to have that option for public to still have access to it. But primarily for older people on Friday night, and again for family mostly on Saturday. And the reason that we are requesting such a big space is since Jeff is the one that's assuming all liability for booking the band, and if it rains, he's the one that deals with contracts, all that type of stuff. The chamber doesn't have much liability involved in this. So we want to provide him with enough space to fit enough people so that he can, if not make a profit, break even. And we think more space would invite more people, and that's how we've come to the size and scope of what I presented to you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Do we have a motion there?
Well, I would make the motion to, I guess, three-part motion. One would be to approve the fencing in of the park as presented and allow the service or sale of beer. And second part would be extend the hours of the park. And I say midnight, I mean, it would quit at midnight, but I know it's going to take a little time to wind down, so I don't know if we just want to just stay at midnight, but give them a little leeway. I know I'm trying to make a motion here, so should we just say 1 o'clock with the understanding that midnight's the close down? And then the third would be allow the streets to be closed per the map submitted.
And if I may, for what it's worth, I'm somewhat new here to Hampton, so I don't know if I've been properly introduced to all of you guys, but I am Eric Christensen. I come from Sioux Falls. I worked for the city park system there for 4 years, actually 5 years, and they've had similar events like this, large gatherings, beer garden with fenced off areas. I'm familiar with the situation. And as far as getting people out on time, they handle it by just getting all the, in our case it'd be the security, for them it was cops, and get them in a big line, and you just walk and you push until people are out of the area. So if that's what needs to happen, we can, but I do have some experience along with this. So.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor then to approve the fencing, allow sale of beer, to extend the hours of the park until midnight, and patrons exited by 1 a.m. And then third part of that being street closures. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Motion by Jim, second made by Steve. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. All right, next is more chamber business. Kent Mullenbeck regarding fundraising for Band Shell Park electric sign.
Thanks for the time to talk to you tonight. Mine won't be quite as heavy as some of the other requests tonight, because we're all in the Christmas spirit at the chamber, and I happen to have our raffle available tonight for anybody that wants to make purchases after the meeting. But again, the raffle this year is the reason I'm talking about that is that we've been talking to you for some time now about the sign that's going to be in the Band Shell Park, the electronic sign. And we've come at this with different ways of requesting funding for it, and then that was denied last year, and we've been debating about requesting funding in the future. But I think our idea right now is on these tickets, we've come up with a plan that says part of the proceeds from this ticket will be used to pay for electronic billboard. we have that built into the ticket. What we've agreed upon in the executive committee and at the chamber is that we have a maximum always of 350 tickets that are going to be sold. I don't think that's ever been reached over the years, but we hope to be a little more aggressive this year. We've started a little earlier. We've got a lot, they're prettier this year, so I'm sure that'll help sell some, and we're going to be a little more aggressive at trying to sell these because our idea is that anything we sell over 300, the proceeds will go toward the sign. And so ideally we'd sell 350 and we'd have an extra $5,000 to go toward the sign, which will come close to fulfilling the cost of that project, which would, Brooke, next spring is probably the soonest that's going to happen, right? So with that, I'd say the sales are going through December 3rd, and we're going to be marketing that as a chamber, and we're going to be promoting that's where the funds are going to. Any questions?
What's been the average yearly annual sales?
I don't have that. I'm thinking last year we sold maybe 280 or something. Again, the $10,000 is the prize, and then there's some additional ones too. Do we have $500? I think so, for some additional prizes maybe. So we've been making maybe $12,000 I think the last few years. Is that close to being right, Brooke? And so we must be running a little over 200, 250. But so it's going to be a push for us to do more, but at least we think we've got a lot of activities going on during the holiday season. The Chamber and Main Street whole idea has been working great. I think it's a lot of good PR, and we've got some enthusiastic, I think, board members that'll hit it a little harder. So hopefully it'll be a fun way to raise the money.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Anything that requires council action, so. All right. I'll move on to the approval of claims as recommended by Finance Committee. Those tonight are in the amount of $341,240.77. There are some big items in there, as we mentioned earlier, the Heartland Asphalt pay request of $50,000, the wire iron of $154,000, and municipal pipe was in there too for $31,000. So some big items for the claims. Any discussion or questions on the claims? Okay, take a motion then to approve the claims.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dick. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Diane. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next we have introduction and consideration of approval and adoption of resolutions and ordinances. First is Resolution 2012-42, a resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $5.5 million sewer revenue capital loan notes. I'll refer the reading to City Manager Duff.
Thank you. Section 1, that this council does hereby institute proceedings and take additional action for the authorization of loan and disbursement agreement by and between the city and Iowa Finance Authority and the issuance of the Iowa Finance Authority in the manner required by law of not to exceed $5,500,000 sewer revenue capital loan notes for the foregoing purpose. Section 2, that this council does hereby consent to the terms and conditions of a SRF loan program, which terms and conditions and disclosures provided with respect thereto are hereby acknowledged and accepted and approved. That the clerk, with the assistance of the city attorney and bond counsel, is hereby authorized and directed to proceed with the preparation of such documents, proceedings that shall be necessary to authorize the city's participation in the SRF loan program. To select a suitable date for the final council authorization of the required loan disbursement agreement and issuance of the note to evidence the city's obligations thereunder, and to take such other actions as the clerk shall deem necessary to permit the completion of a loan on the basis of favorable to the city and acceptable to this council. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, any questions for Ron? Okay, entertain a motion.
I move we approve.
Motion by Jim to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Craig. Any further discussion? Okay. We'll vote with a roll call vote. Eckhart?
Aye.
Harms?
Aye.
Davies?
Aye.
Lucensmeyer?
Aye.
Raleigh?
Aye.
Augbach?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next is Resolution 2012-43, a resolution accepting work on the 2012 water tower painting project. And I'll look for the reading to City Manager Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2012-43, a resolution accepting work. Whereas on June 12, 2012, the City of Hampton, Iowa entered into a contract with McGuire Iron, Inc. of Sioux Falls, South Dakota for the construction of the 2012 water tower painting project within the city and therein described. And whereas said contractor has fully completed the construction of said improvements known as the 2012 water tower painting project in accordance with the terms and conditions of said contract and plans and specifications as shown on the final payment certificate of the engineer filed with the clerk on November 13, 2012. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Hampton, Iowa, Section 1, that said report of the engineer be and the same is hereby approved and adopted, and said improvements are hereby accepted as having been fully completed in accordance with the said plans, specifications, and contract. The contract cost of the improvements payable under said contract is hereby determined to be $173,026, less a deduction of liquidated damages in the amount of $7,000 and less a deduction of additional city expense in the amount of $2,600 for a contract price of $163,426. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? Okay, entertain motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dick and a second by Steve to approve. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Davies?
Aye.
Crowley?
Aye.
Augenbach?
Aye.
Eckhart?
Aye.
Lukensmeyer?
Aye.
Harms?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is Resolution 2012-44, resolution authorizing acquisition of temporary and permanent easements from William E. Peterson and Katie Jacoby for the wastewater treatment facility project. I'll refer reading to City Manager Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution authorizing acquisition of temporary and permanent easements from William E. Peterson and Katie Jacoby. Whereas the City Council of the City of Hampton, Iowa has heretofore authorized use of powers of eminent domain in a project known as the Wastewater Treatment System Improvement Project. Wherefore the City Council of the City of Hampton, Iowa has heretofore found the project to be in the public interest and has authorized the use of the powers of eminent domain and found there a reasonable expectation that the project will achieve its public purpose, will be completed, will comply with applicable standards and obtain all necessary permits. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Hampton, Iowa, Section 1, the prior resolution regarding the authorization of eminent domain and finding there is a reasonable expectation the project will achieve its public purpose, will be completed, will comply with all applicable standards and obtain all necessary permits as affirmed. Section 2, the City of Hampton has made a good faith effort to acquire the necessary property interest by negotiation and has been able to agree to the following terms for the acquisition through good faith negotiations. As part of the project, the City Council hereby determines it's reasonable and necessary to acquire following necessary property interests located in Franklin County, Iowa. For the Peterson and Jacoby property, it would be a 30-foot wide permanent easement for sanitary sewer purposes over, under, across that part of the certificate of change of title described in instrument number 2006-0200 in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of section 34, township 92 north, range 20 west of the 5th PM, and a temporary easement upon, over, and under, through, and across the Peterson-Jacoby properties. William E. Peterson, Katie Jacoby as grantors in consideration of $3,202.97 combined total for the two easements, and other good and valuable consideration agreed to grant, sell, convey to the City of Hampton, Iowa as grantee a permanent easement upon, over, under, through, and across above described real estate, together with the right of egress and ingress to and from the same real estate, and all the rights, privileges, incident, and necessary for the enjoyment of this easement, and a temporary easement over, under, through, across above described real estate. The City Council hereby accepts the attached easements, directs the City Manager to issue payment in the amount of $3,491.88 to the grantors. Thank you, Mayor.
If there's no questions, I'll take a motion.
Move we approve.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Jim and second by Diane to approve. Any further discussion? The roll call, Lukensmeyer?
Aye.
Augenbach?
Aye.
Eckhart?
Aye.
Crowley?
Aye.
Arms?
Aye.
Davies?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is ordinance number 336, introduction and first reading, an ordinance amending chapter 151 of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 by revising purpose and creating additional definitions and regulations for the safe and educated land stewardship practices and the preservation and planting of trees. I'll refer the reading to City Manager Dunn.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 336, Section 1, Chapter 151 of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 is hereby amended by repealing the text of 151.01, purpose, and replacing it with the following. The purpose of this chapter is to encourage the safe and educated land stewardship practices within the corporate city limits of the City of Hampton, preserving the appearance of the city. Chapter 151.02 of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 is hereby amended by adding thereto new subsections, adding number 4, number 5, and number 6 as follows. Number 4. Hampton Tree Board means a 7-member board appointed by the mayor to serve a term of up to 5 years with no term limits. Number 5. Tree Management Plan is a document utilized for conducting urban forest management within the corporate city limits of Hampton, Iowa. Number 6. Tree Permit is a signed document issued by the City of Hampton authorizing tree removal and tree planting on city-owned properties within the corporate limits of Hampton, Iowa. Chapter 151 of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 is hereby amended by repealing the text of 151.03, planting restrictions, and replacing it with the following. Tree planting shall be allowed along any street, avenue, or highway between the outer line of the sidewalk and the curb, where the curb line is established, or within any public right-of-way, parking, or street, provided an application for permit is first submitted, reviewed, and approved by the City of Hampton. Chapter 151 of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 is hereby amended by adding new subsections number 151.12, 151.13, and 151.14 as follows. Point 1.2, permitting no person shall plant or cause to be removed any tree on any city-owned property or public right-of-way without first obtaining an approved permit, the application for which is available at Hampton City Hall. Tree species will be monitored as part of the permitting process, and only those species identified on the permit form will be allowed for planting. This chapter subsection is implemented to encourage the planting of trees, promoting safety, educated land stewardship, and protection of vital infrastructure. 151.13 appeals. Any person receiving notice to remove dead or diseased trees and or any person denied a permit for removal of or planting of trees may appeal the decision of city staff to the Hampton Tree Board. Appeal must be in writing and received at Hampton City Hall no later than 10 days following the date of notice or denial of the permit. The board will then set a date for public hearing before the board within 30 days. Persons filing an appeal must appear before the board at the scheduled hearing and will be notified no less than 5 days prior to public hearing. In the event the board denies initial appeal, a secondary appeal may be filed at City Hall and must be received in writing no later than 10 days following the board's decision. The Hampton City Council will then schedule a hearing within 30 days of receipt of the appeal. Persons filing secondary appeal will be notified of the scheduled date and time of the City Council hearing no later than 10 days prior to the hearing and must appear before the City Council at the date and time scheduled. 151.14 Hampton Tree Management Plan. The City of Hampton adopts and utilizes the document identified as 2012 Management Plan prepared by Bureau of Forestry, Iowa DNR, as a guide for implementing best practices for land stewardship, and will continue to update and adhere to this plan no less than once every 5-year period. All ordinances or parts of ordinance in conflict with the provisions of this ordinance are hereby repealed. If any section, provision, or part of this ordinance shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional, such adjudication shall not affect the validity of the ordinance as a whole, or any section, provision, or part thereof not adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
A motion by Val and a second by Craig to approve the first reading of ordinance number 336. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Arms?
Aye.
Lukensmeyer?
Aye.
Eckhart?
Aye.
Davies?
Aye.
Hagebeck?
Aye.
Raleigh?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda is ordinance number 337, introduction and also first reading. An ordinance amending chapter 167 zoning regulations, floodplain management of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 by repealing certain sections and replacing with new section in lieu thereof and amending certain sections. Further reading, City Manager Dents.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 337. Section 1607.01 of Chapter 167 of the Hampton Municipal Code of 2009 is hereby repealed and the following new section adopted in lieu thereof as follows. 167.01 Statutory Authority, Findings of Fact and Purpose. Statutory authority. The legislature of the state of Iowa has in Chapter 364 Code of Iowa as amended delegated the powers to cities to exercise any power and to perform any function as it deems appropriate to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and property of the city or of its residents and to preserve and improve the peace, safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents. Number 2. Findings of fact. A. The flood hazard areas of the city of Hampton are subject to periodic inundation which can result in loss of life and property, health and safety hazards, disruption of commerce and governmental services, extraordinary public expenditures for flood protection and relief, and impairment of the tax base, all of which adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. These flood losses, hazards, and related adverse effects are caused by the occupancy of flood hazard areas by uses vulnerable to flood damages which create hazardous conditions as a result of being inadequately elevated or otherwise protected from flooding. And 2, the cumulative effect of obstructions on the floodplain causing increases in flood heights and velocities. 3, or C, statement of purposes. It is the purpose of the ordinance to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and property of the city of Hampton and its residents, and to preserve and improve the peace, safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents by minimizing these flood losses described in section 167.012A of this ordinance with provisions designed to 1. Restrict or prohibit uses which are dangerous to health, safety, and property in times of flood or which cause excessive increases in flood heights or velocities. 2. Require that uses vulnerable to floods, including public facilities which serve such uses, be protected against flood damage at the time of the initial construction or substantial improvement. 3. Protect individuals from buying lands which may not be suited for intended purposes because of flood hazard. 4. Assure that the eligibility is maintained for property owners in the community to purchase flood insurance through the National Flood Insurance Program. Section 2, Section 167.02 of Chapter 167 is amended by adding the following definitions. Minor projects means small development activities except for filling, grading, and excavating, valued at less than $500. Routine maintenance of existing buildings and